The autumn sun filtered through lace curtains, painting gold on Emily Carter's immaculate kitchen counter. A pot roast simmered in the crock pot beside a pecan pie so flawless it could have been photoshopped. Her hands, calloused from decades of scrubbing and stitching, adjusted a ceramic pumpkin centerpiece for the third time. Perfect. Just like the life she'd spent 20 years curating, right down to Victor's golf polos, starched and waiting in his closet. "You're a Saint M," sighed her book club friend, swirling apple cider in a mason jar. "If I tried half this, my Todd would have divorced me for DoorDash." Emily's laugh was tight. Victor hadn't touched her cooking in weeks. His late meetings reeked of coconut sunscreen and Zoe's Instagram-filtered laughter. She knew. Of course she knew. But admitting it meant unraveling the quilt of their marriage stitch by stitch. He arrived home at 10:03 p.m., eyes darting past the family photos lining the stairs. Emily's knitting needles paused mid-stitch. A half-finished scarf for Olivia, their NIU junior. The yarn trembled. "It's Zoe," Victor blurted, towing the edge of the Persian rug she'd spent 6 months hunting on Etsy. "We're buying an RV. Hitting Route 66. Living, you know." Living. The word curdled in her throat. She'd lived for his promotions, his heartburn, his obsession with the Joe Rogan Experience. Now he wanted freedom in a tin can on wheels with a girl who called kombucha a personality. "You'll regret this," she whispered, clutching her grandmother's quilt like a life raft. Victor stuffed socks into a duffel, avoiding her reflection in the gilded hallway mirror. "Simon, it's 2023. People grow apart." 3 hours later, frost bit her bare toes as she gripped the balcony railing. 15 floors below, the community pool glowed toxic blue. One step. No more casseroles. No more pretending. Wind whipped her nightgown, and for a heartbeat, she let go. "Mom?" Olivia's grip was vise-like, yanking her back into the warmth of betrayal. "What the actual hell?" "He's gone, Liv. Everything's bull." Her daughter's voice cracked, equal parts fury and fear. "Dad's having a midlife meltdown. But you." She gestured at Emily's frayed college sweatshirt. "You're a bombshell dressed by a Kohl's clearance rack. Tomorrow, we fix that." By noon, Emily sat shell-shocked in a Brooklyn salon, techno music throbbing as Olivia barked orders. "Chop it. Dye it. Make her look like the main character." The stylist grinned. "Ever heard of a revenge haircut?" Scissors snipped. Years of split ends and supermarket highlights fell. Platinum balayage emerged. Leather replaced fleece. Ankle boots murdered her orthopedic clogs. "Meet the new Emily Carter," Olivia said, snapping a selfie. "Now let's go wreck Dad's algorithm." Across town, Victor choked on Zoe's charcoal-infused avocado toast. His phone buzzed. Olivia's Instagram story. Emily, glowing under cafe lights, accepting a latte from some silver-haired stranger. "Since when does Em drink lats?" Zoe snatched his phone. "Off. Basic midlife reboot. So Real Housewives." But Victor's gut churned. The Emily he knew would have folded his socks into origami swans. This woman? She looked like she'd burn his golf clubs for fun. The pie he'd ignored sat rotting on the counter. Pecan filling oozed sticky and sweet, like the life he'd thrown away. The leather jacket still felt like a costume as Emily fumbled with her keys outside the dog park. Olivia had texted her 6 times that morning. "Stop overthinking. You're Beyoncé in a mom bod now. Act like it." But confidence didn't come with a haircut, no matter what Instagram influencers claimed. Barnaby bounded toward her first, a tornado of tricolor fur, his Bernedoodle grin slobbering on her new boots. Samuel followed, hands raised in apology. He's a menace. Also, you're holding a Starbucks cup. Should I be offended? She glanced at the latte. My daughter says pumpkin spice is a cry for help. Your daughter, he said, unleashing Barnaby into a pack of jealous poodles, sounds like my ex-niece. His chuckle faded. Larissa, my wife, hated coffee. Tea only. Earl Grey, 2 sugars. I still find stray packets in coat pockets. Emily studied his wedding band, pale skin where gold had once clung. Grief is just love with nowhere to go, her grandmother used to say. She'd stitched it onto a quilt now boxed in Victor's old study. You quilt, right? Samuel nodded at her tote bag, yarn peeking through. Larissa crocheted. Made me a scarf so hideous I wore it to her funeral. That's morbid? Yeah, she'd have laughed. Barnaby returned, depositing a slimy tennis ball at Emily's feet. Samuel's smile crinkled the corners of his eyes. Safe, she thought. He looks safe. Victor wasn't laughing. Zoe's minimalist studio felt like an IKEA showroom. All concrete and houseplants he kept overwatering. You fed Barnaby? Zoe glared at her phone, where Emily's dog park selfie with Samuel had 87 likes. That mutt's a glorified dust mop. And why's your ex suddenly #living her best life? She's just adjusting. Adjusting. Zoe snorted. She's trending in Maplewood Mom Facebook groups. Janice from your office DM'd me. Is Victor okay? He stared at the avocado pit sprouting in a jar on the windowsill. Emily would have turned it into compost. Zoe called it decor. His phone buzzed. Olivia. Mom's got a date. Don't call her. Date. The word fizzed like Alka-Seltzer in his gut. Emily's date was a community theater production of Steel Magnolias, Samuel's idea. Larissa loved it. Cried every time, even though she'd seen it 12 times. The theater smelled of mothballs and hope. Halfway through Act A, Samuel's pinky brushed hers. Emily froze. 20 years since anyone touched me first. Afterward, they lingered under marquee lights. I should have brought a quilt, she joked, shivering. Samuel draped his blazer over her shoulders. Next time. Next time. She texted Olivia from the Uber, not dead. Didn't kiss him. Olivia. Boring. But the group chat thinks his jacket's Gucci. Keep him. At 2 a.m., Zoe's TikTok glow lit the studio. Victor eavesdropped on her live stream. Dating after divorce? Sis, scrub his energy with sage. And always reverse image search his dog. He slid into Emily's DMs. We need to talk. 3 dots pulsed. Then, your chia pet's dead. I overwatered it. Sorry. Victor stared at the dead plant. Zoe's laughter echoed as she #tagged #karma. Outside, a siren wailed. Somewhere, Emily was sewing again, stitching a life where he no longer fit. The hum of the sewing machine blended with the rain tapping against the windows. Emily squinted at the quilt taking shape beneath her fingers. A storm of indigo and gold, jagged lines cutting through what once would have been orderly patterns. Olivia had called it punk rock grandma chic before leaving for class. On the counter, Samuel's text glowed. Dinner Friday? Barnaby promises not to steal your bread rolls this time. She'd almost said no. Almost. Victor's chia corpse still sat shriveled in its jar by the sink. Zoe had DM'd her a TikTok of it set to another one bites the dust. hashtagging #Karmasabitch. Emily deleted it, then blocked her. Small victories. Zoe's studio reeked of burnt sage and regret. You're sure this works? Victor waved smoke from his face as she circled him with a smoldering bundle, chanting about vibrational cleanses. Negative energy's why your hairline's receding, Zoe snapped, filming the ritual for her followers. And maybe stop stalking your ex's Etsy shop. His face flushed. He'd spent last night scrolling Emily's new page, Stitched with Grace, where her quilts sold faster than Zoe's ads for detox tea. The reviews gutted him. Art that feels like a hug. This quilt healed my divorce trauma. His phone buzzed. Olivia. Mom's donating your golf clubs. Thought you'd want to say goodbye. The thrift store reeked of mothballs and middle-aged resignation. Victor lingered by the clubs, their grips still molded to his hands. You gonna buy those or cry on them? He spun. Emily stood framed in the doorway, a box of his old sweaters in her arms. Her hair was shorter now, dyed the color of storm clouds. She looks dangerous. They're priced to sell, she said, breezing past. Though the 7-irons rusted. Zoe's not a golfer, I take it? He flinched. This isn't you. Since when do you mock people? She paused, a sweater slipping from the box. Cashmere. He'd forgotten she'd hand-washed them every winter. Since I realized kindness isn't a virtue, she said softly. It's a cage. Samuel's cottage smelled of cedar and garlic. Barnaby dozed by the fire as Emily diced tomatoes, her hands steady. 20 years since she'd cooked for anyone but Victor. Confession, Samuel said, topping off her wine. I Googled how to impress a quilter. Found a Reddit thread about binding techniques. Almost bought a thimble necklace. She snorted. I'd have worn it. Good. His thumb grazed her wrist. Because I'm terrible at subtlety. The oven timer screamed. They jumped apart, laughing until her phone buzzed. Zoe's latest TikTok. Victor alone at a bar. #, divorce-depression. You okay? Samuel asked. Emily silenced the phone. I'm better than okay. At midnight, Olivia FaceTimed, her dorm a chaos of fairy lights and philosophy textbooks. Mom, you didn't tell me you're trending. Emily squinted at the screen. A photo of her and Samuel at the thrift store captioned, Suburban Queen upgrades to Silver Fox. #divorce glow up. The comments think he's a retired CEO, Olivia said. Also Dad's crying at O'Malley's. The group chat's having a field day. Emily closed her eyes. Victor's tears used to be her compass. Now they were just noise. Liv? Yeah? What's a Reddit? Olivia's cackle echoed through the house, shaking loose dust, and maybe a ghost or two. In the dark, Victor scrolled Stitched with Grace again. A new quilt hung in the shop, deep red, with a single black thread coiled like a snake in the corner. The description read, Some patterns are meant to be broken. He ordered it. For what, he didn't know. Zoe's snores rattled the air mattress. Outside, a garbage truck groaned. Somewhere, Emily was laughing. The art fair banners flapped in the wind like jubilant flags, each quilt displayed in Emily's booth a riot of color against the gray autumn sky. Samuel steadied the ladder as she hung the final piece, the crimson quilt with its serpentine thread. It's like you're defying the weather itself, he said, brushing sawdust from her sleeve. Defiance is my new hobby, she replied, though her hands trembled. Stitched with Grace had a waitlist now. Strangers wanted her art in their homes. It terrified her more than Zoe's TikTok rants. Across town, Victor stared at the event's Facebook page. Zoe had tagged him in a comment, LOL, who buys fabric scraped together by a dumped housewife. #desperate crafters. The notification blinked like a taunt. He shut his laptop, then opened it again. The quilt he'd ordered, the one with the snake, glowed on the screen. Pick up today. Zoe arrived late, her neon puffer jacket clashing with the fair's folksy charm. She aimed her phone at Emily's booth. Live from Divorcees Anonymous. Let's see what trauma we're monetizing today. Ma'am? A woman in a hand-knit shawl interrupted, holding up the crimson quilt. Is this about rebirth? The serpent shedding its skin? Emily hesitated. It's about realizing some bites aren't fatal. The woman bought it on the spot. Zoe's livestream chat exploded. That quilt's fire. Your ex-MIL's a vibe. She's not my MIL, Zoe hissed, stomping off. Victor found Emily boxing up his old sweaters at the donation tent. You kept these. He fingered the cashmere, threadbare at the elbows. Sentimentality's a hard habit. She didn't look up. I bought your quilt. The red one. Her needle paused. Why? I don't know. It felt honest. A couple wandered into the tent, cooing over a geometric throw. Emily lowered her voice. You hated my quilts. Said they clashed with the sectional. I was an idiot. Yes. She met his gaze. But so was I. Samuel appeared then, Barnaby trotting beside him with a Adopt Me bandana. Ready to close up? He handed Emily a chai latte, steam curling into the crisp air. Victor stepped back. The dog sniffed his shoes, tail wagging. Simon. Barnaby. Samuel's voice was gentle but firm. Let's give them space. No. Emily linked her arm through Samuel's. We're done with spaces. That night, Olivia zoomed in from a dorm strewn with empty Red Bull cans. You sold the snake quilt. To Dad? Mom, that's diabolical. It's just a quilt. But Emily's smile betrayed her. Aha. Next you'll tell me you're not wearing Samuel's flannel. Emily glanced down. The plaid sleeves drowned her wrists. It's cold. Sewer. Olivia grinned. Group chats demanding pics of Barnaby in a Santa hat next. Priorities. Okay. Rain pattered against the windows. Samuel washed dishes in the kitchen, humming off-key to a jazz playlist. Emily's phone buzzed. A photo from Victor. The crimson quilt spread across Zoe's IKEA sofa. It doesn't fit here, he texted. She deleted it. Everything okay? Samuel called. Emily joined him, resting her head against his shoulder. Water sloshed in the sink as he scrubbed a burnt skillet. Better than okay. Outside, the moon carved shadows through Maplewood, a town stitching itself into new patterns, one thread at a time. Snow draped Maplewood like a cheap souvenir postcard, too perfect to be real. Emily adjusted the reindeer brooch on her coat collar, a gift from Samuel. You're like a Hallmark movie heroine, he joked, minus the manic grin. Barnaby, sporting a red and green bandana, nosed a gift box labeled Victor. Inside was a miniature quilt, a replica of the crimson one with the serpentine thread. It's symbolic, Olivia had insisted. Let him hang it on his fridge as a reminder you slayed him. Victor received the package the morning Zoe announced her move to LA. New Jersey has zero vibe for my brand, she'd said, stuffing macrobiotic snacks into a #girlboss suitcase. He pinned the tiny quilt to his fridge. next to a photo of Olivia as a gap-toothed kid. The thread snake stared back with button eyes. Admit it, Emily would have said. Art should bite sometimes. Maplewood Community Center, December 24th. The Christmas market buzzed like a stirred hive. Emily was unfurling her final quilt when a woman in a burgundy peacoat approached. "You're the one with the snake quilt. My husband left me for his yoga instructor. Yours hangs above our bed. Thanks for making divorce chic." Samuel, unloading mulled wine boxes, snorted. "You should patent this. Dr. Emily Carter, healing with stitches and sass." They were laughing when the door blew open. Victor stood there, snow melting on his too-thin jacket, the one Emily had once picked to bring out his eyes. Zoe clearly hadn't checked the weather app. "Emily, we need to talk." She sighed, adjusting a price tag on a wool scarf. "You've got 5 minutes. Barnaby hates delayed walkies." He held out the miniature quilt. "I kept it. Thanks." "Don't. It cost me 2 hours and a bottle of peanut." "I was an idiot." "Yes." She loudly shuffled cash receipts. "But so was I. Thought love meant sacrifice. Turns out it's about choice." Victor touched the quilt's edge, where the thread looped, an intentional flaw. "You always hated unfinished patterns." "I did. Now I get it. Unfinished means room to grow." Outside, an ambulance wailed. Somewhere, Zoe was probably arguing with an Uber driver about her healing crystals in the trunk. That night, Samuel's cottage. Barnaby snored by the fireplace, hugging a disemboweled plush rooster. Emily sorted leftover market stock when she found an old photo. Her and Victor at their first housewarming, holding hands like kids afraid to get lost. "Nostalgia is sneaky," Samuel said, setting cocoa on the table. "Like mold. Grows where you least expect." She flipped the photo face down. "Not nostalgia. Just gratitude. Without him, I'd never have learned to love quiet." He lifted the tablecloth's edge, where Emily had secretly stitched a tiny knitted bear, her new signature. "Quiet's overrated. I like your muttering when the yarn tangles." Snow thickened outside, wrapping the world in white. Somewhere in it, Victor was microwaving a frozen pizza in a condo that smelled of someone else's perfume. Zoe was posting airport selfies with #FreshStart. But here, where fire crackled and cinnamon lingered, Emily pulled out an unfinished quilt, a supernova of blue and silver threads. "This'll be my best work." Samuel traced a gold thread that abruptly ended. "On purpose?" "On purpose." She smiled, shoulders loosening for the first time all day. "To remind us, even beautiful stories need empty spaces. For something new." Wind howled outside, but here, warmed by Barnaby's squirrel-chasing snores, everything held. Like stitches on a well-made quilt, not perfect, but strong.